You are now in the realm of enlightenment and transformation.
Welcome to Chief Speaks.
All music performed and produced by Yuya.
Enlightenment comes from allowing yourself to journey through the dark shadow of death, the primordial abyss of wisdom's waters. For it is the treasures and mysteries that lie waiting in the dark that transform us and propel us to a new enlightened state. One should never aspire to live in the light nor the dark, but should journey between the two in order to evolve the overall reality into a self-actualized creation. Knowledge is your light, as wisdom is your darkness. The bold interplay of the two in your life leads you to an enlightened understanding of yourself and the universe you've created. Male is your enlightenment, female is your transformation, child is your evolution. Woman, accept the light into your darkness, so it may enlighten you. Man, go bring your light boldly into the darkness, so that it may transform you. Enlightenment and transformation.
I love you so much because you just don't know what you've just done for me. Thank you so much.
Wow. This is like the best call I've had in ages on BTR.
So this show was meant for me to be able to hear today, and I'm so thankful.
That's his home.
Therefore, now a new pathway has now been cut in order to get to the Almighty, where there may not have been one. So the communication with them, if they have enough power and strength to talk to us, the communication will be very clear.
That's one of the reasons I don't get into the current events thing too much, because it starts to become a perpetual alarm clock that we just keep hitting snooze on. I speak to the ascended masters, quote unquote. I talk about spiritual stuff, but I also speak about some very practical, we can do today things.
Be as natural as you can be with your spiritual. You can't always go by your feelings, because your feelings are corrupted. Your feelings are just as corrupted as everything else, your chakras and everything else. You got to know what's beyond you, and that's why we have elders. We can't do everything. You can't get everything out of books or weekend certification. You can have the most powerful, ancient, oldest, most, as far as you know, truthful tradition in your hands. And if you still have a dirty spirit, you're not going to get anything out of it. You're not going to learn anything. You're not actually going to grow. I try to teach in a way where I make myself obsolete. That's always been my goal, to make myself obsolete.
I really wanted to, kind of big you up. I think you're awesome.
There's a lot of elders out here right now that want to know what's going on. They're not getting on Twitter and stuff like that, but they want to be up on the new stuff. Sit down and have some conversations with them. It's not always about hearing their story. It's also about being news reporters for them and letting them know, like, yeah, this is what's happening right now. They may tell you something about what happened in Charleston that you couldn't even. Your spirituality has to create sane spiritual family. Okay, and that family exists first inside of you. You have to express the different expressions of that rainbow coalition of spirits inside of you first. Okay, don't let communities hijack that rainbow. The problem is, when we come into the conscious community, the dudes are doing the same thing that the women are doing.
I just want to say that I really enjoy your show every Sunday, and my friend and I call it going to church. When we call in, we'll be like, you going to church? And I'm like, where have y'all been at?
God cannot go against its own truth. So anytime you have an inkling that God is going against its own truth, then God is no longer behaving as God. So therefore, the spiritual community doesn't recognize God. You dig where I'm coming from? Or can we have a new thought? Can we step outside of the books for a second and have a new conversation about hair weaves and wigs? Can we have a new conversation about homosexuality? Can we have a new conversation about vegan eating? What are we doing? It's a good day for exorcism.
347-945-7680. Call in and let's build.
Mujiba Iyanas, Grandpa, Grandma, Book Boy Goon, Ori, Eshu, Boporisha, Ileanu, Hey, Aje, Iyami Osaronga.
Welcome everyone to another segment of Chief Speaks on Enlightenment and Transformation.
I want to send a hearty welcome to all of you first-time listeners / watchers, and definitely all of you who have been historically and traditionally listening to all of the Enlightenment and Transformation offerings. Of course, my name is Chief Yuya, and I am the head Jegna of the Anu Nation, the Anu Life Global Ministries, and the head instructor of the Sadulu House Spiritual Institute, so Spiritual Center. So I want to just thank you for coming in and enjoying these moments with us and sharing. You know, we've been getting a lot of positive feedback in terms of what people have been able to do now with themselves and their lives based on listening to these segments and learning different sciences and tapping into, and most importantly, applying these lessons to their lives. And you know, I'm very thankful for that. It's a beautiful thing when you not only have a place where you can go to that is giving you something nutritious, but you can also digest what you're receiving. You know, you have to kind of, or I would encourage you to give yourself a pat on the back for that, because everything isn't for everyone. And certainly, yeah, there are times when you may share information and it's absolutely on point, it's absolutely correct, but for some, it's just not their season and their time to receive it. So when you're able to give something and people are able to also receive it, you know, that means that you're in a path where you're in the right way. You know, you're in the right way, and it's the right time for you. You know, so definitely pay close attention to that. It's not just about me teaching and giving you different things. It's also about your ability to digest, intake, synthesize, and apply. And that takes a certain level of growth, talent, and skill to even get that accomplished. So, you know, I'm proud of many of you. You know, I get a lot of good feedback. And like I always tell you guys, I do look at the comments on the videos, and people have been able to share their testimonies that way, and also calling in on the live call-in shows. Now, as many of you may know, we have live call-in shows not just Sunday, the last Sunday of every month, but also Tuesdays and Thursdays between 1 and 3 p.m. Eastern. We have the community show, and that's been going pretty good. You know, I tuned in. I had a couple of the shows playing while I was doing other things, our previous Tuesdays and Thursdays. So it's been good to hear just the students chop it up and just listeners chop it up and share ideas back and forth and come up with different conclusions. And they've been really diving into some controversial issues. So it's been enjoyable to listen to, and I'm sure educational as well for many of you. But also, you know, the last Sunday of the month, which will be next Sunday, we also have the live call-in. You can do that at 347-945-7680. 347-945-7680. But again, you know, this month we've been dealing with the topic of new gods versus old gods. And in our last segment, we spoke about the Dogon secrets and its relationship to what we're coming back into, or what we're turning back into. And I want to also share that I'm using the term gods, but I have no aspirations to be a god, and I don't necessarily even encourage that. That's something that we may be right now, and that's something that we may become, and something that we may move beyond. But it's not really something to aspire to. It just kind of happens. It's an organic process. It's an organic part of your growth. Understanding that a God is one who is completely in tune with the instinctual and primal hankerings and the instinctual and primal manifestations, the forces, you know, what we do by instinct, by design, and one who has great influence, or it may just influence one person. You know, one God may have one worshiper, you know. So as you grow and as you develop, you're going to end up being that talk of legend as you develop and as you mature. You know, you're going to end up being those that people talk about and are influenced by. Just like now you're seeing all of these speeches and all of these breakdowns happening surrounding Muhammad Ali. You're seeing people talk about Prince. The same thing happened when Michael Jackson transitioned. You know, even when James Brown transitioned, there was a lot of communication and a lot of talks about what their lives meant and how their lives and how them as individuals, how they influenced other people. People had personal testimonies about these individuals. Well, that is the makeup of a god. One who influences another person. I'll share my own. I actually met Muhammad Ali 2 times, and the first time I was a young boy, and I met him at a boxing camp that I was in, and he was the one who actually taught me how to jab. So you speak about influence. So I could clearly say that Muhammad Ali was one of my gods, because from that age, so many years ago, I was a young boy, up until today, I pretty much throw my jab. If I'm sparring or if I'm in a situation, I throw my jab the same exact way that Muhammad Ali taught me decades ago. And he pulled me out of the crowd. It was a lot of us, and he was speaking to us, and it was kind of a pass-through type thing. Sometimes celebrities have those, and they go from spot to spot. And he actually spent time, and we were all very, very young, and he saw me and he pulled me up. He said I was handsome. He said, "Come on, you're a good-looking boy," and pulled me up and said, "Let me see you punch. Let me see your jab." And I hit his hand, and he said, "No," and he showed me how to do it properly. So he's one of my gods, we could say. He's someone who has influenced my life. Obviously, that meeting just with him influenced me to, it gave me a different perception on celebrity. Because at that time he was everything. Muhammad Ali, he was everything he was larger than life. So for him to actually touch me, say, "Here, move here," and then I hit his hand, and then he grabs my fist and my wrist, and he's manipulating me and showing me what to do. That was a divine moment in my life, and I'm sure it influenced me and affected me on ways that even to this day I may not be in tune with, right? So was he trying to be my God? Maybe not on a conscious level, but certainly we can become gods just through our power of influence. That is how deities are born, and legends are born because we do certain things, we accomplish certain things, and then people speak about them, and people tend to include and add their own level of mysticism in whatever it is that we may accomplish, or whatever it is that we may do. People will start doing the name breakdowns and this and that and that. But we're just being what we're being. It's very similar to like what Peter Tosh said in referencing to His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie, when he said, God is not supposed to know that he's God. So he is just a man living his life, but we knew him as such. Right, because this was an individual that the entire Rastafarian community said, "Okay, you're the one. You're the one." And the things that you say and the things that you do, even your name, Rastafari, even your name will become the centerpiece of our movement, you see. So it's important when we think about deityhood, or when we think about being a god, we recognize that that's not the aspiration, should never be the aspiration. We may refer to each other as gods. I'm called God sometimes, peace God. I may call someone else a god, depending on, but to be honest with you, the word means very little to me. It's like saying, "Hey, what's up, man? What's up, sis? What's up, bro?" So using that terminology, I use it in reference. But to say someone is an individual or force or entity who has had influence and great impact or profound persuasion, even for a moment, on an individual's life, really brings them into that place of godhood, and certainly the mythology that's associated with their lives becomes legend. So many of us out here who are doing the work and who are just living, some of us just living our lives, but our lives are so profound, even without our realizing it. We are the stuff of legends without knowing it. And once you know it, you really don't become the stuff of legend. Once you can dissect, well, I did this just like Asar did, and I did just like Osiris did, and I did this just like this, and you're going through all of these different artificial movements in order to become these particular entities. That's not the legendary stuff, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. because we do that in order to raise a vibration and in order to see from a different perspective and to take on different characteristics and personalities. But I can guarantee you the things that become legend about you are not the things that you are going to do intentionally. They're going to be the things that come to you instinctually and naturally. They're going to come from your gut. And remember, gut is a German word, good, coming, and where we now get the word God. So the things that you do from the gut, from the gut, from the God, become the talk of legend. The things that you may do from your personality, or you do for vanity, you know, from that Maya perspective, are the things that fade away because they're temporal. You know, it's only the dominion of the gut, or the dominion of God, that's eternal. That's the only thing that's going to last. You know, we look at the word kingdom, right? And kingdom, many of us know what a king is, you know, a ruler, a sovereign. And then we have dom, which is a form of dominion. So when we say a kingdom, it's the dominion or the sphere of influence of the king. So that's why in many systems and in many countries and ethnic groups, the king is seen as like an emissary or an ambassador for the Almighty, just like the Nagara and the Nagaru were in ancient Kemet. You know, these were considered to be the emissaries of the Almighty. So therefore, where they stayed, with the throne that they sat on, their sphere of influence resembled the heavens, because they were supposed to be that representative. If you even look at the Pope, right? The full name of the Pope is Pope God on Earth. You know, for some reason they cut the last part out, I guess because then people would stop saying, you know what they doing all the time, you know what they doing? They would point their finger at the Pope and say, well, the Pope, his full name is Pope God on Earth. If we understand that that's his full name, then now we get an understanding of how much power is being installed into this individual on the earth, right? So it's the same thing for us, and as we're moving and as we're traveling, what we're being called to represent, you know, what we're being called to be is not only the work and the material and the content of legend, but it's we're being called to act and move from the gut. So what happens is that, and the gut is our center. So at the center, it's just like Zion. You know, it's the center is that light. You know, you have in the movie Matrix, you had Zion, and Zion was that free place that was at the center of the earth representing the body, Zion representing that center, or that Ori Inu, which we call the inner consciousness, which comes and goes, travels out of the belly button, or what many of you may call the solar chakra. Well, the solar or the sun is what? It's we live in a heliocentric model. Heliocentric meaning the sun is the center of everything in our universe. So if we understand that, and we then go to the solar chakra, we understand that this, our center, or our solar chakra, is the center of all things in our body. Well, we also call that area the gut. You know, sometimes we'll say, I had a gut feeling, or someone may be going through something, and they'll say they don't know what to do, and we'll say, well, what does your gut tell you? My gut's telling me to kill the person. No, you know, gut may tell you all kind of different things. But and the gut is going to transcend man's law. The gut is going to transcend sometimes what we even perceive to be as divine law. It's going to take you into a space a lot of time where you're going to be the unlikely hero, or the unlikely Haru. You know, that individual who now has to redeem something or bring something back into balance, who was never expected to be able to do something like that. You know, who was never expected to have that type of ability or that type of courage. Courage comes from the heart. So we're dealing with the heart and the gut, you know, those two chakras, you know, acting and doing certain things. So the idea of the gut, you know, is an important thing, and it gets even more important when you start investing in your physical, when you start learning how to detox properly, when you start learning how to cleanse out your colon properly, cleanse out your intestines properly, not just your large intestines, but your small intestines. A lot of cleanses we do, a lot of times just work the small intestines. We don't deal with the large intestines, you know. But when you start to get that center right, even when you start to do exercises where you're working your core muscles, you know, one simple thing you can do, I do often, I like to hike a lot. I like to be in the woods most of the time, pretty much all the time. I want to be in the woods. If not in the woods, put me in the grimiest urban spot, You know, it's between the woods, the grimiest urban place, and bougie places. Those three, you know. So I kind of like my extremes, right? So what I like to do when I go into the woods, especially if I'm going through a lot of places where the terrain may change elevations a lot and I have to lift a lot, you know, using my legs, I'll put on a very heavy backpack. Usually I travel with a drum when I go into the woods. So I'll have maybe a drum, some water, a couple of things with me. So I may have 40 pounds on my back. And just carrying that backpack alone helps to strengthen the core muscles. You know, so things like that, where you're strengthening the core, you're cleaning out the core, it helps to develop a greater sensitivity to that God space. A lot of people complain about that, like, I don't hear the voice of this, I don't hear the voice of that, you know, or how do I know it's God speaking? A lot of times our systems are so toxified that we have 1,000,001 different things vying for our attention. You know, you may have parasites, you may have worms in your system. And when you have worms in your system, you're going to be hungry all the time, but they're also going to affect your mood. You know, so sometimes you don't know if it's you speaking or if it's your toxins speaking, or if it's your urges speaking, or if it's, you know, your cravings speaking. So that's one of the beautiful things about going through a fast. As many of you know right now, Ramadan is occurring. And so for many of us, we're going through a fast and, you know, ingesting our food after sunset and going through certain purification rites and cleansing rites and communication rites and communing rites with that which we call our higher self or our higher peace or the peace, right? For those who participate in Ramadan. So with that, even still, it gives you an opportunity to tune into what? Into God, tuning into the gut. Because you're allowing some of those toxins, you're giving your system a break, you're allowing it to relax a little bit and to release. Relax and release, right? So there are many ways to tap into what we consider to be the gut or what we consider to be the center. But it's critical that we do. The solar chakra plays a very important role not only in our development, but it plays a very important role in our chakra system. Of course, mainly being one of the central points. It's right before you get to the heart chakra, you know, and there's a lot of critical things that happen between your gut and your heart, if you really think about it. You know, most of the time when we feel love, we feel it in our gut. Most of the time when we feel hate, we feel it in our gut. When we feel sadness, many of our emotions we feel in our gut. And just like our food, when we're not able to take in the emotions that are being transferred to us or triggered in us by our brains and then properly process or digest them and then release them, it causes sickness. Now, it's no different with your food. If you're not digesting your food properly, it will cause sickness. It turns venomous inside of your body because it'll turn acidic from sitting for so long. Well, it's the same thing with your emotions. Your emotions turn into what you consider to be demons if they're not released properly because they stay in the shadows. And as long as there's shadow and there's a lack of sunlight, all sorts of organisms are able to grow. You know, and an important understanding too when we're dealing with deityhood or dealing with the gods is of course that balance and that recognition and understanding of light and darkness. You know, what does the light do? What does the darkness do? So as many times we talk about using the light as a form and as a means to dispel darkness, you should also see it in this way. As we can have something that is pure or something that is unblemished be corrupted by something that we would consider to be dark, like we may have a pure soul that becomes corrupted and blemished when it goes through the passage of the body, when it takes on a physical form, when it falls into the darkness of the melanin, you know. And I'm not just speaking about epidermal melanin, but when we're speaking about also melanin that exists inside, there's many forms of melanin. But when it goes into that darkness, now there's not necessarily a corruption of the soul, but it's certainly a corruption of the reflection of the soul, right? So it's the same thing when we're dealing with darkness. A lot of times we look at darkness because, again, of the programming that's still inside of us as the bad stuff. And we need light and more light and more light and more light to get rid of the darkness. Well, Light is actually a corrupter of darkness, no different than how darkness is a corrupter of light. So there is a pure darkness that occurs. There is a purity, there is a gracefulness, there is a regalness of darkness. Even when we think about the colors that often represent royalty, purple, white, gold. These are colors of royalty, right? So even the idea of the purple can be corrupted by putting something light into it. No different than light can be corrupted by putting something dark into it, which just goes to further reinforce the idea that there are supposed to be dark gods, quote unquote gods, and there's supposed to be light gods. And each one melding into each other corrupts one another. And that corruption is a transformation. And there's a time when that transformation is supposed to occur, when it's necessary, when there has to be a change. Most of the times in our lives, we rail against the transformation. When we see that transformation coming, we go berserk. You have people who you'll try to help sometime, you'll try to talk to them and teach them certain things, and they'll be riding with you and following you until the real changes start to occur in their lives. Once the real changes come, then they go berserk. They start to blame you for certain things. They yell at you. They curse you out. They tell you that you are what you're not. All kind of horrible things they'll do, because what's happening inside of them is a transformation of the darkness and a transformation of their light. Neither one is going to stay the same. It's not just like the yin and yang symbol where they're always separate, because even with the yin and yang, there's a line in the middle. And if you were able to really magnify the fineness of that line, you would see gray. You wouldn't see black or white, you would see gray. And eventually that gray is going to spread out and spread out and spread out and spread out until there's a oneness. And that goes back to our understanding of what we spoke about last strong in our last segment, dealing with the doggone empire. When we're dealing with coming back into that pneumo, coming back into that united front of male and female, or what some may call a hermaphroditic reality, or some may even call an androgynous reality. But androgyny is not necessarily the same as hermaphroditic. For those of us who are the new deities preparing ourselves for our return home, what's also going to happen is a terraforming, if you will, where there's a change not only in our spiritual structure, but there's a change in our physical anatomy, in our physical structure. One of the things that we're understanding now, for those of you who've been picking up on it, is that time is changing. All things are mutable. You got to first get that in your head. When you're dealing with life here on the planet, when you're dealing with life here on Earth, or the Earth's crust, everything that's here is here for the purpose of transformation. And in order to transform, it has to answer a certain question. Okay, they go hand in hand. So our returning back to our previous home or our previous glory is going to require a melding of male and female principle. And not necessarily in concept, not just in your emotional system, like I feel like I'm a woman trapped in a man's body. I feel like I'm a man trapped in a woman's body. It's not so simple. That's an oversimplification of it. But in fact, the way it's going to occur going forward, just like the pneumo, is that there'll be an understanding of vacillation between male and female, where we'll be able to flow between the two very easily. When you think about even the transitioning, or like I said, the changing of the guards, when we deal with the deities, when we deal with the gods, well, there was an archetype in Kemet that we had identified by the name of Hecate. And Hecate, and there's a lot of discussion in terms of the relationship of Hecate to the Grecian Hecate, because they both were patrons of frogs, and they were both, Hecate dealt with the crossroads and death and transitioning and change, and also being a form of a gatekeeper. And Hecate, of course, dealt with the transitioning of the deities, such as Anpu going to Asar, or some of you may know Anubis. Anubis becoming, giving over the role as the Lord of the Underworld to Osiris, or as Set Typhus giving over the role of the Lord of the Earth over to Asar. So it was Hecate who dealt with the transitioning and the changing of the guards for different deities. Well, if you think about Hecate was called the frog-headed deity. And a frog has that ability to go, it's amphibious, it goes between water and earth very easily and very simply. So it lives between two different worlds. You know, it lives between the underworld, or the world of water, or the world of the woman, the world of feminine, and the world of air on top, where the man is. You know, the necessity and the crucialness of the feminine principle becomes more apparent now as we talk about going back home. And I'll tell you why. This is a man's world. I said it in Grasping the Root of Divine Power. I've said it many other times before. James Brown even told you it's a man's world. Why? Because this is the world of definition. This is the world of condensation. And when you take something that's high energy and you condense it down into an organized and ordered form, which is basically corrupting darkness with light. Okay, so when we look down upon the earth and it's dark and it's without form and it's a void, this is a feminine principle. And then when we inject light, sperm, and we say, let there be light, and we see that the light is good, what we're actually doing is we're corrupting the darkness with shots of light. But by corrupting the darkness with shots of light, we then manifest and create something that now condenses down into a slower energy, which we know to be us. Some call it humanity, right? So we corrupted the darkness with light. Now, in order to return back to where we're going with that dual form, well, first let's get to why this is a man's world. Because when you have hard defined matter, remember the masculine principle seeks for definition. The feminine principle does not. The feminine principle is fine the way it is. It's a causeless cause. It's all power. And the reason why it's able to remain and to keep so much of its power is because it doesn't want power. It just is. You see, so when we're functioning on the planet, though, when we function through this world, it's the man's job to acclimate his woman to social construct. Now, of course, he passes that down to his woman, and his woman teaches it to the child. You know, this is how you greet people. You look at people in the eye. This is how you shake a hand. Don't miss a belt loop. Make sure your socks match. You know, I'm simplifying it, you know, for the purposes of understanding it. But this reality, this three-dimensional condensed matter reality, is a masculine reality. Even though there are dualities that exist within this. Of course, you have the principle of earth. Of course, you have the principle of water, and these are feminine principles, but they're existing within the male construct. Now, when we deal with the esoteric, the metaphysics, we're dealing with feminine construct. When we deal with the idea of heaven, or the idea of Orun, which later became harem, which was the family, but the harem we know were the women. Well, this was heaven. Heaven is the woman's world. So as we speak about transitioning back, when we speak about going back home, we're going to need the recombination with the feminine principle in order to get to that next place. So to survive, function, and prosper here, you need the male principle. To survive, function, and prosper in heaven, you need the female principle. So our new combination of things, or our new combining and our new understanding, is that there has to be an eradication of duality for us to come back into being one. Remember, the further away you get from your source as a divine being, the more duality becomes apparent and necessary. There has to be further separation. The closer you get back to the source, the more you come into a place of unification. Okay, this is represented by the spirit of a beast we used to have called the unicorn. Many people spoke about the unicorn and different legends. You had the movie Legend with Tom Cruise and Tim Curry. And, you know, much of the movie centered around the not only the sacrifice, but the corruption of a unicorn. Okay, and this was done by a woman, a young maiden, who initially was innocent, but she had the animal inside of her. She had the corruptive force, the wickedness inside of her. Her name was Lily. Tom Cruise's character, his name was Jack. Anytime you see Jack, they're talking about Jesus. You know, when you see that word Jack. So you also had the movie The Last Unicorn, which was a movie about the corrupting of the one, there being a splitting, going into a more dualistic form. And how do we redeem back to that? We get back into the uni, we get back into the one. So the idea of the new gods versus the old gods, it's a battle of sorts, because it's a dance between the old and the new to figure out which one should be. But you'll find that when you combine the old with the new, there's going to be a corruption of both. There's going to be a transformation of both energies. You know, you study Muhammad Ali long enough, you study Floyd Mayweather long enough, you'll be neither. You'll be something other than, but with influences from both. I spoke about this when we did just a slight cursory breakdown of the movie The Book of Eli, when I showed you that, yeah, they had the store and the archive there on Alcatraz Island, but it was not enough. So Solaris took off. Solaris is actually, maybe I'll break down Solaris one day for you guys too. That's an old Phoenician entity, Solaris or Solara. You know, we also have a car named the Toyota Solara. But what you find is that the old wasn't enough, and the new is still searching, because the new recognizes instinctually that it's still not enough. But there's a melding of the two in order to become something unlike either one. You know, and that's one of the greatest sciences when we're dealing with new gods versus old gods. It's to be neither one. It's to be what your gut tells you to be. It's to be what your gut reveals. So if it means that you be a priest in this way, or you be a chef in this way, or you be a warrior in this way, you be a father in this way, you be a mother in this way, you be a teacher in this way, you follow your gut. But the problem is, this is where a lot of people mess up. They do really stupid things and say, well, that's what my gut told me. Sometimes your gut is corrupt. Your instincts are shot to hell. I speak to a lot of students who have no instincts. They think they do, but they don't know what they're really listening to. And then when they do something stupid, they'll use that as the excuse. Well, you told me to listen to my gut. I'm listening to my Ori. They wouldn't know their Ori from an ice cream truck. They wouldn't know what it sounds like. They don't know the difference. They don't know the sound of their spirit. They don't know versus the sound of their soul, versus the sound of their ancestors, versus the sound of their thoughts, versus the sound of their mind. There's many voices fighting for dominance inside of your structure, you see. So there needs to be that filtering, and that filtering occurs when we're battling each one to see which one should be more dominant. Sometimes your ego wins, and your ego wins out over your spirit. I know I'm supposed to do this, but I know knowledge, or rumila, but falling down into the earth, the body. So this is when knowledge and wisdom and understanding is beaten out over your personality. I know, but it's just that simple. The battle was just that quick, and that one little statement. I know, but I should. You're right, but. You see? So these battles happen in very interesting ways, very quickly, you see. But don't strive to be a god. Strive to move beyond it. And the thing is, the way you avoid from becoming a caricature of yourself is by never being what's projected, but being yourself. There's no caricature for yourself as of yet, until it becomes a legend. Just like when we speak about the conscious community, you have Oswald Bates going way back. I mean, In Living Color came out, what, almost 30 years ago now? You know, and you had a character in the show, Oswald Bates, and he used a lot of large and exaggerated words in order to make very simple statements, or to make statements that made no sense. And what he was a spoof of the conscious brother, especially the conscious incarcerated brother, who took time to learn the dictionary, but not really learn the meaning of the actual words. You know, so when we're still striving to be that, it's very easy for the world to treat us in a certain way, because they've created prisons for every archetype. They already know how to defeat Oshun. They know how to defeat Ogun. They know how to defeat Shango, know how to defeat Oya, because the world has been studying it longer than you have. But the new thing, they do not know how to defeat. The new you, the instinctual, guttural you, the one that always lasts. Because when we spoke about kingdoms early, right? Kingdoms rise and fall. Kemet, it rose and fell. The Yoruba kingdom, we still celebrate and say, oh, it's still there, but they're all Muslims and Christians. So all kingdoms rise and fall. It's the nature of things. But what is eternal? What never rises or falls? At least not in the long scope of things. It's the kingdom of the deities. It's the kingdom of hell, and it's the kingdom of heaven. They battle each other. They're their only competition. But in fact, they're working with one another. So they're really just sparring. It's almost like when you talk about Prince, for instance. If we didn't like a Prince project that came out, why was it? It was only because it wasn't as good as the last one. It wasn't because Prince came out with something and Michael Jackson's was better, or Stevie Wonder's was better, or Rick James was better, you know, or Van Hunt is better than Prince, or Miguel's project was better than Prince. You could only compare a Prince project with another Prince project. So who was his nemesis? Who was his competition? Himself. So when you flow from the gut, when you flow instinctually, guess what your only competition will be? Guess what the only thing that will be able to defeat you is? Yourself. So you won't be able to call the shows and say, my mother's doing this and my sisters don't trust me and my children are acting up and my husband. If you're flowing from the gut and you've cleaned the gut, not just with a detox, is more than that, but when you're in tune with your center, you're in tune with your solar chakra, which is the seat of your power. The solar chakra is the seat of your throne. You got the crown here, but the throne is that solar chakra. Your throne on earth, Malkuth, would be the root chakra, but you don't want to root yourself in the earth. Not eternally. Your eternal rooting is on your personal identity and character. Okay? Your spiritual identity and character. That's what you want to take with you to the next place. And then let that continue to evolve, continue to evolve. You know, that's the way that works. But if you behave in a way, or if you, in a simple way, don't let your light shine, people will treat you or perceive you as being ordinary. Now, sometimes you can use that as a tool of deception and misinformation, but then sometimes it also causes your life to become very ordinary. Imagine, you look at the movie The Last Unicorn again, she was able to roam around amongst the people freely because people were unable to see her. They didn't have eyes to see that this was actually a unicorn. They just thought she was a horse. So it's just like, I may look at you, or you may look at me and say, oh, he's just a man, he's just a guy. He teaches, that's all, you know, because you don't have eyes to see. In order to understand half the things I'm talking about, you got to have one foot on Venus and the other foot on the moon for you to actually get what I'm actually talking about. If not, then it just sounds like interesting stuff to listen to. So that has been our Chief Speaks, and New Gods versus Old Gods. Make sure you tune in next Sunday. 347-945-7680 is the call-in number. 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll be doing live call-ins for Chief Speaks. Of course, it's a student panel. I encourage all of you students to call in, talk, share how you felt about the segments this month and what may have resonated with you and what maybe the concepts you still may be struggling with. And definitely every Tuesdays and Thursdays, make sure you tune in to community radio or the community show, whatever one. We call it different things each time. But that airs from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern. And that's been a great show. I mean, people have seen and really been enjoying it. And that's at 347-945-7680. Also, make sure if you're not a member of the I New Life Global Ministries, go over to inewlifeglobal.org and sign up. Everything will be in the description of the show, all the links for you to find. But that's at inewlifeglobal.org. If you're not a member of the Sadulu House, make sure you go and sign up for classes, our new spiritual training. You can go to saduluhouse.com, saduluhouse.com. And I saw a recent comment on a video, as recent as today, where someone asked if I knew anything about Oshun or Eshu. So I would encourage you again to go to Sadulu House, and you'll see that I've taught on Oshun and Eshu. There's plenty of material there. Also, there's YouTube videos on Oshun and Eshu, and we even have a free course where you can tap into some of the old archive shows teaching about Oshun, Eshu, Oya, the Ibeje, Ochosi, and many other entities. And like I promised, I have a new class also coming forth very soon. So yeah, I do know something about the Orisha. I have classes on that as well. And people are always still asking, how do I get a reading? AskOsiris.com. Now, if you look on these videos, there's links to all of this. You know, we have it flashing every couple of seconds so that you'll have the links right in front of you. But for readings, AskOsiris.com. For monthly consultations and coaching, OsirisLife.com. All right. So that has been everything. I want to thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you all very soon. Peace.
Anu Nation is home to the Anu spiritual order founded by Chief Jegna Haru Yuya Asan Anu. Some of the components of Anu Nation are Anu Life Global Ministries, Enlightenment and Transformation, Sadulu House, and Osiris Life Spiritual Services. SaduluHouse.com is the school component of Anu Nation, where spiritual empowerment through education and training is emphasized. One way that is accomplished is through our monthly webinars. Our webinars are packed with foundational information, rituals, and live instruction to empower your spiritual work. At SaduluHouse.com, you can view our diverse list of topics for this year that range from meditation to sex magic. And you can also register for any of the webinars at your convenience, sign up for our introductory Orisha class, schedule a spiritual reading, and sign up for the Anu Spiritual Training course. Enlightenment and Transformation is the media component of Anu Nation. Here, you can view all of our archive shows from over the years to our current segments. They include Chief Speaks, Masterminds Monday, Anu Asafo, Thunderground Thursdays, and Foundational Fridays. You can also visit us on our YouTube channels. They are Enlightenment and Transformation, Orisha Yoruba, and Anu Nation. Osiris Life Spiritual Services is for those who are ready to take the necessary actions to bring your life into holistic balance. Here we offer consistent monthly one-on-one coaching, solutions that are tailored just for you, practical hands-on self-development techniques that will accompany your monthly readings, and customized practical strategies designed for you that guarantee positive results. Simply choose the package that best fits your needs. And last but not least, AlphaOmegaStore.com. The Alpha Omega Store is our online botanica where we offer divination tools, herbs and incense, DVDs, books, and other hard-to-find ritual items. You can also get our best-selling foundational book, Grasping the Root of Divine Power. Other great works from Anu Nation are Shrine and Altar, Solutions for Dysfunctional Family Relationships, and Natural Hair for Young Women. All great books to assist you on your journey. To find out more on how to get involved with Anu Nation, visit our websites and YouTube channels and be sure to sign up for our monthly newsletter.